Good day. Good day. Welcome, everyone. Thank you. Just wait for a few people to come on. Nice to see you all. It's been a busy week. I'm trying to think, what have I done? I've actually achieved. It's been all right. It's been productive. It's been all right. We've got some really good guests coming up. We've got Gary Craig and Dale Tomlinson. Forgive me, Dale. And basically talking about this app which will help with PTSD and welfare, that side of things. And it's all about prevention as well as cure. And we're going to learn a little bit more about that. But obviously, looking on the side of the policing side of things, with the suicide level as it is and the stress involved with police officers, I think that's really, really going to be relevant. So it's going to be a good chat with that. I've spoken to the guys first time today, and it's excellent. So I see that it's interesting. I'm using a different camera for that. So let me just check my, I'm going to just change the camera on this if I can. And then you'll see, there we go. It's all a bit brighter. It's all a bit brighter now. So welcome, everyone. You can really see the grey now. I like that. That's all right. Embrace it. Embrace it. You can see my lovely little floral pictures on the wall, my peach wallpaper, as I'm living this beautiful part of the country. What I will, down in Cornwall. Before we move on to that, I'll just go through a bit of what's been going on so far. This is on my Twitter side of things. You can follow me on EX_ARV_SGT, which is a catchy title. I know it's basically ex-ARV Sergeant. Yes, you can get the books, Firearms and Fatals, which, because I was on armed response and I was on traffic side of things, dealing with road death, all the cheerful subjects. And that's where we'll be talking about very shortly. I want to show you this thing. Has anyone seen this? Let's put this on.
Identify yourself.
PC280.
And where are you based?
So I'm hoping you can hear this.
Right. Is it part of the police's policy to sit there and stare out members of the public? Who do you think you are? All you've done is eyeball me the 2 times I've drove past. What, you put the uniform on and get an ego boost? Who do you think you are? I'm a taxpayer. You're here to serve me, mate. All right. So explain yourself.
I wasn't eyeballing you, mate.
You was eyeballing you. I was fucking rubbing neck at you. And
now
you were still looking. Listen, mate, I'm not your average member of the public. You can sit there and smirk all you want, right? There'll be a nice letter before claim for you. Explain yourself. Well, explain yourself. No, you weren't. You were looking tired.
He goes on like that, and it just is. This is what police officers are having to put up with. They have had in the past, but because of cameras now, one step out of place, one word out of place, then he is in a whole host of problems. So he's probably thinking 1,000 miles an hour. I personally I'd have looked, I said, oh, okay, where's the camera? Come on, this is a comedy show, isn't it? Is this a comedy show? Is this not a comedy show? And I would laugh. I think I'd laugh, put the window up and just driven off very slowly. I think because you can't, this guy, it is so frustrating that you do get individuals like this, and they get a YouTube channel, perhaps, and they try to wind this officers up. But good for this officer for how he reacted on that. Just doesn't give it any tone. It just basically says, yes, right, okay, all right, that side of things. Devon and Cornwall recruiting. Okay, 40 grand. I was surprised at that. 40 grand per year within 7 years. It's going to be a tough 7 years, that, mind you, whilst you reach that. So well deserved once you get there. So go for that. I still had an armed response officer who was on less money than when he was earning as a PCSO, and he was 5 years as a PC, as an armed response officer on shifts and things like that. That's not saying PCSOs are overpaid. That is saying that the initial years of policing is freaking tough on wages and all sorts. I like this. I don't know if it will come up. My Wi-Fi is going a bit slow at the moment, but we'll just pop this on and see if it works. But getting the attention.
Stop making me laugh, guys.
When dealing with animals is.
throw one leg out?
I mean, they will ridicule you, your friends. Thank you to Nick Knowles. He is, I consider him a friend of mine now. I think he's, I talk to him quite regularly and he doesn't shout at me back. So that's quite nice. Really supporting. And it was National Police Patrol Week, I think it was. So good for him. He was giving a bit of support and City of London Police were appreciating it. So Nick Knowles, what a top guy, mainly because he sticks his head above the parapet and actually supports police when it's not necessarily the cool thing to do, when other people in his position might wish to just turn, just not get involved in that side of things. So I think he really needs, a round of applause for him. Rose, thank you, Rose. I will let you know how the book is going in a minute, because you are going to see a half-naked photograph of me. Well, it's not. It's bit of shoulders, bare shoulders. I wouldn't submit to any of that. I wanted to let you know, but this one, lot of scam calls. I had 3 yesterday coming from, as you're probably aware, a lot of you, I am main carer for my mum at the moment. She's got dementia. She's a beautiful, very easy lady to look after, but she's got vascular dementia. So I'm very, very fortunate with her. And I say I live on the Cornish coast here with me. So the biggest downfall about this is peach wallpaper and floral curtains. But apart from that, it's okay. It's okay. The other stuff's fine. But so she was receiving a call. I was a bit bored yesterday. I'd just come in and I had written a bit more of my book in town, and I'd had a couple of coffees and it was pretty hot. Came here, walked along the beach. This is my commute, right? Walked back along the beaches at low tide. Dale, you're in Northumbria, I believe. So it's a lot colder in Newcastle and all that stuff in there. He's in the green room down below. It's actually beautiful beaches up there, actually. Came back here. I'd already had a dodgy call earlier. And so what I was doing, I put this tweet out saying 3 calls so far today to my elderly mother's landline from fictitious Amazon employees trying to access computers so they have access to passwords and bank details. I've enjoyed wasting their time. This number here I was able to put up because they do grab people's numbers. That one was this phone number is not receiving incoming calls. I always Google the phone number first of all to see if the whole number comes up with anything, just to make sure I'm not going to be phoning them back and having a massive bill. And then I reported it to Amazon the usual way. And earlier today, I told the person I was turning on my laptop as directed, but it would take a couple of minutes, and then left the phone open whilst I left town, because I was fortunate enough, I've got a carer for 5 hours on the weekday, so don't feel too sorry for me that we've brought in, had to do privately, because you know how the system is at the moment, really much on our own. Lots of people who want to help, but just unable to. It's just not the staff or the finances. So so basically tend to say, oh yeah, really? Is that right? Okay, well, I'll fire up my laptop and I'll just put it on the windowsill, stick it in the room, and then I'll go make a cup of tea. And then hopefully that just uses a little bit of the time. And then one of them, then I did come back and say, you really need to go and contribute to society a bit and be an honest person, and don't waste your horrible life like this, because you're doing a horrible stuff to people. And then they rang back and said that I was a effing B, and then slammed the phone down on me. of which I felt, yes, I've pissed one off. Now this has nothing to do with policing. Because I'm a nosy bugger and I'm looking at all my mum's paperwork, her photographs. I found one with me and my, I found one with is lots of photographs I didn't really know exist. This is a love letter, basically, from the Barclay. My dad, we never had loads and loads of money. I think my dad used to have, and then he got a couple of divorces and all that. And then, so he's in Knightsbridge in the Barclay and says, "My darling, from this princely abode, I send that much of my love that can cling to this page. The bulk has perforce," I had to look up the word perforce, and it means necessity or inevitability. So, sorry, the talk has perforce to stay with me, here entrapped in luxury, yet sparkling and vital for you alone. A kiss for the children and my life for you, abiento. So stick that on a text and send it to your missus and see what happens. Things have changed, hasn't it? Hasn't it somewhat? It's a shame in a way, isn't it? The letters were great. And to answer your previous question, thank you very much. I'll go through a couple of those questions in a minute. Stephanie, I know. When is Dave coming back? Stephanie, I don't know at the moment. It's complicated. It's ongoing things at the moment, but he is going to be away for a few weeks, I'm afraid. But he's fine. All right, I promise you, he's fine. This is the usual cafe. Find a cafe in town. Get a coffee on my business accounts. See what the accountant says later. Write another 1,500, 2,000 words there. And that is of the Cornish Scoop. And that is Corner Scoop Part 2, because that is Corner Scoop Part 1. Ta-da! And it's basically, for all those that don't know, Corner Scoop Part 1 and 2 is basically my character has moved into Newquay. And so it's Cornwall policing in the early 90s. And very by coincidence, it was sort of the same age as me at the time, and doing the sort of policing that I knew. So it just spiced up a bit in places as well. So hopefully it's a lot of fun. The Corner Scoop Part 1, I don't know what I'm going to call Part 2 yet. Might be Part 2. Yeah, it's got 4.7 out of 5 in Amazon. And I see Farms and Fatal has sold over 11,000 of these things now. Self-publisher, doing better than a lot of the published ones, actually. But that's 11,000 of those buggers. And that's only a mere 4.6 out of 5. So the Cornish Scoop's better. There you go. Here we go. I needed to show you this. This is phenomenal. Look at that. Manchester Beam Monument. And if you look closely, so this is basically getting all the weapons that were seized in Manchester to spread the word that basically violence isn't the answer. And if you look at the legs, you see these telescopic sights, rifles, all these knives, silencers, guns. What a formidable beast that looks. I'm hoping it's as big as it looks it is. It's probably the size of a matchbox, but no, it isn't. I think it's huge. Impressive. Then I did a bit of Radio Devon. That went to BBC Radio Devon, talked to Fitz. Fitz, journalist there, I know him. He's a presenter, rather, lovely guy. And he said, Harry, do you fancy coming to do... You tend to do a chat every 3 months with him about... You tend to share an hour with another guest, but he had me in. He said, do you fancy coming on Thursday? We've got space. I said, yeah, what are we talking about? He goes, I don't know. And I went, sure. so the freedom. I had to get to Plymouth, turn around, and then after the show and come back. Because limited times with the carer I've got here. These guys, PTSD, can't praise these enough. I've bumped into these. I have to say, this is why you don't feel sorry for me. I got up in the morning, sorted mum's breakfast out, made sure everything was fine, opened the door, barefoot, walked 20 meters up the road to Lusty Glaze Beach with my cup of tea, and I met these fine people here. So this is Op Surfwell, and they help anyone in emergency services. They're not the prettiest bunch. I had to improve the picture there somewhat. There's a bit of prettiness there, I guess, and his hair's nice. But anyway, but these guys, former armed response officers. I think most of them were and things. And one of them was a paramedic before he was in the police. This one here. Top guys. And basically, they're running this thing where just to get people, emergency services, away from all the stress, where they're struggling a little bit, they need a bit of time out. And so they're able to take a bit of time with this. Just do something in nature with the elements and learn the basics on just how to surf. So this is an extract from a letter they were sent, and they asked permission if we could put this on a tweet. This is just a small part. And it said, in the extreme, you have saved my life. On a professional level, you have given Norfolk back an officer who is now positive, looking forward to many years ahead and equipped to help peers. Norfolk Police participant, 8th of June, very recently. And that it's just absolutely a wonderful thing. Nick Knowles came down to Bude. I asked him to come down. He said to me afterwards, just to promote it a little bit, he said to me afterwards, Harry, I was just going to stay there an hour. And he was there 5 hours in the end. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And here we go. I think there is. And then said naked picture, there you go, but you'll be distracted by the dog. That is just nipped down to Lusty Days Beat. It is 20 meters. So don't feel sorry for me. This is a beautiful part, even though it is pretty much looking like storm force winds and rain out there at the moment. But this was literally a couple of days, a few days ago. Yesterday was the hottest day for a while. But I think that's less about me, more about what we're here for. Quickly look through the questions. Yeah, fantastic sculpture. Thank you, Mick. I don't know. Are you referring to me photobombing Arthur, my border terrier Jack Russell Cross? Yes, thank you very much. They are. All emergency services are amazing. They need every support they can. Even the fire service, amazing. Yeah, I know. I know a lot of fire service. So through my learn to live side of things. But actually, if you look at my tweet on scam calls, there's some really good advice on there, especially if you have elderly parents and you're worried that they're going to get roped into these, because it only takes one, doesn't it? There's some really good links. You can get phones that automatically block these things. You can do things which struggle for if someone's living with parents as well, because what it will do is block. It will only accept numbers that are identified. Well, sometimes if you need numbers that are, there's a lot of companies and agencies that ring you that aren't identified, so that can cut those off as well. So it's not always the answer, but you can get phones that can do that. But look on the thread on that, and there's also some good some good revenge tactics some people have put on themselves, how to get back at these people. Right, I think let's get back. Funny enough, my mobile phone just rang with a private number came up. Thank you. Yeah, Rose, it is, isn't it? Beautiful. My dad was a writer, actually, and certainly gift. I sort of stumbled my way through with words, thrashing about like a mad thing, and he just delicately danced through it, I think. So I'm going to welcome, because we're going to talk about an incredible app called Thrive. It's all part of mental health. I've got Gary and Dale here. I'm going to bring them on. Welcome, Gary, and welcome, Dale. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on here and telling us a little bit more about what you're involved in. First of all, I'm just going to start off with just a very quick your background, Gary. You're in the PSNI, the Police Service of Northern Ireland, as an inspector, aren't you? And
yes.
And how long have you been in the police there?
18 years now.
18 years, and that's quite. I mean, we look from Britain and we go, right, okay, well, we think it's quite dodgy here sometimes, and then we look at you guys over there just getting on with it. We think so. We think, especially me in Devon and Cornwall, I thought, I do sort of live up to the reputation of saying, well, occasionally people swear down here, but that's about it, So, Dale, and what's your background? What do you do?
So, yeah, I work full time for Thrive Mental Wellbeing, which is how I met Gary, which I think we can discuss in a bit more detail later. My background is mostly in social impact, in community work, and that's what brought me into Thrive, and brought me into working with Gary as well.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you, Dale. So, Gary, how did this all start? You're in the police, you're an inspector. Where has your route gone then to get you to where you are with organising this app with Dale and a few others?
Well, it was a route that I didn't expect. We're all very aware of in 2012 when Nicola and Fiona were murdered in Manchester. And at the time, the outpouring of support for police at the time was phenomenal, but it never seemed to last. And then it was the next incident, and the police bashing started again. Basically, the Thin Blue Line UK was set up to try and highlight some of the stories that the police do, the bravery that police exhibit on a daily basis, and to basically highlight and allow the public to show support for us. I didn't expect anything more from that, but a lot of people seemed to buy into it, and we had a lot of support with designing some badges and stuff like that there, which we raised a bit of money for cops and police care. And it just seemed to develop from that. More people got in touch with me, asking if they could help us in any way, and we then developed a line of clothing. You've already had a chance to speak to Andrea, one of our trustees, Andrea Quentin, superintendent of GMP.
Yeah, she's amazing. She actually, you can blame her because she's the one who said you really need to speak to Gary, and said, you might have to persuade him because he's not. You're not too comfortable with Catalan. But you're brilliant. But I've been speaking to you, mate. So it's her to blame.
Yeah, no. She wrote this. It was after the murder of another police officer, Dave Phillips in Liverpool, and she wrote this amazing letter, and it still has the powerful impact it had today. But we published that and it went around the world, and it really highlighted the work that police do. And it's not just the small snippets of film you see on YouTube that's edited to show a certain narrative. It's the intimate details of what police officers face on a daily basis. And as you well know, Harry, what we face on a daily basis is not normal. And one of the things we really do a lot is normalize it in our head when it's as far from normal as you can get sometimes. But in the last few years, we had organized a few fundraising balls, and we had a lot of support from people in America and a lot of companies here in the UK. And the money coming in was just, we needed to do something with that, so we formed a charity. And what we've tried to focus down on now is raising awareness in and around mental health for police officers, because we're not very good at it. The very nature of our role is you just get on with it. You know, you're a police officer, you're expecting nearly to be abused and assaulted at work and spat on, and just all these things that once you leave the station gates, you're meant to leave it all behind and go home to your family. And sometimes your partners will get the brunt of that whenever you'll come home maybe after a particularly heavy day and you're just maybe not in the mood for the children. I know a lot of people have this imaginary coat hanger as they go in the door where they hang their troubles up and they go in and see their children and they see their wife and family and pick it all up again on the way out. But it's
very true, and this is not what you're advocating. But as you're saying this, I'm going to shove a little bit of you because this is another way to cope, but it's not the way to cope because I do apologise, but I couldn't miss that opportunity. That gin is freaking gorgeous. I mean, seriously, it's the best gin. There's two that I really go for, and sorry, Dale, I couldn't resist it. I get into trouble for this sort of thing. But do you know what? It is amazing gin. So I reckon that. And could you just explain with the Thin Blue Line, they can get up there, but there's like 10 quid goes to the
the guy. Again, this all started with we had a very lovely gentleman helping us in Scotland, and he had made initial inquiries. The guy Robert W, who was with us from the very start, and the guy that runs it is Alan Walker, who's an ex-police officer in police Scotland, who went off on PSNI, and this was his avenue. He decided he was taking the pub one day, tasted a gin, and decided he could do that better, and he has. He has. That gin has sold over 500 or 600 bottles, given the charity nearly £5,000 or £6,000. So it's been a phenomenal success. I'm slightly biased, yes, but it is a very good gin, and I would recommend it to anybody.
Are you a gin drinker, Dale? Are you drink?
Not particularly. No, I have to be honest.
Did he think?
Mind, though, by all means.
Gary, do you think he was thinking? Shall I lie? No, I can't.
Well, that floats your boat in any way.
When we finally meet up in person, Gary, maybe I'll have a go.
This is it. But we'll have a bottle of whiskey there on standby just in case, okay? Or is that not the case either? But
no,
it was so I really apologise for that. So you've done. So it's actually you've got some money from it, and then there was this silly thing that people are. I've got a flag that I put on the back with thin blue line on that, and it's been. People have tried to hijack it. Oh no, they didn't try to hijack it, but people were getting confused, or they wanted to stir up a little bit of anti-police, and they said it's a right-wing thing. No, it isn't. It's the thin blue line. It's there for a very good reason. It's supporting charities, and it really shouldn't be forgotten like that, should it?
I think the whole idea behind that there, and we would be quite adamant about this, that there to a police officer represents one very important thing, and it's part of the family that we are. When you join the police, you become part of an extended family, and that there signifies that to us. It's the thin blue line. We're all standing on it. Unfortunately, it's getting thinner, and it just puts additional pressure onto the officers that are remaining. And that it's as simple as that. There's no ulterior message behind that. It's a simple representation of the police family.
And I proudly wore mine on my ARV. And luckily our chief constable Sean Sawyer, he's retiring now, and what a phenomenal chief constable he was, real people person. And I think Devon and Cornwall people assume, because I play to the stereotype that it's nothing, it's all fields and nothing really happens and people just swear occasionally. But of course we've got county lines, we've got the motorway, whereas Avon and Somerset could say, on you go, carry on. But Devon and Cornwall, we've got nowhere to put them. They get to Penzance, we can't get rid of them, So, you can imagine if they're in we're just monitoring these bad guys. And we haven't really got the resources, but we'll just monitor them. Oh, they're into Devon. What a shame. I'm not saying that happens, Avon and Somerset, but I wouldn't blame you if you did. So that's the stress. I was speaking to an officer recently, very literally last week, and he said, Harry, you wouldn't believe it. The numbers that we're on at this location is this. The workload is massive. It's the stress. You just got fewer people in a more rural area, covering a larger area with the same issue. So the stress is humongous. So then you decided, okay, so we're going to make use of this money and we're going to do something constructive and get this app going. How did you get Dale? How did you get involved with Gary on this then? Where did it start?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think Gary worked with a member of our team called Jenny in working out, exploring how we can support Thin Blue Line. So we're a healthcare company first and foremost, but we operate through tech. To Thrive Therapeutic Software, as it was known, was founded in 2012 by a consultant psychiatrist and consultant clinical psychologist. They recognized that, I guess, the national conversation around mental health was more towards firefighting and putting out fires that are already lit, rather than the resilience building, catching symptoms early and stopping people from suffering for longer than they need to. And they recognize that with the rising use of smartphones, we're going back to 2012 here, where a lot of people had them, but it was still sort of uncharted territory a little bit. But they recognized there was an opportunity with technology to get the latest psychological tools and techniques to people, to help people get access to therapy and taking away stigmas, cultural stigmas, demographic stigmas of accessing mental health support. And so I think with the way that we've built ourselves as an organization, being impact-led, and the brilliant research and work we've already done with various police forces and other organizations, including the police treatment centers, I think we stood in really good ground for Gary to come in and talk to us about how we can support his service users and the wider policing family in terms of that support we have within our tool that we've created.
So, and where did it start with you then? Because were you involved with sort of youth cancer charity or something like that?
Yeah. So before I worked at Thrive, I've always been involved in social impact. That's sort of been I did a degree in accounting and finance and hated more or less every minute of it, I have to say.
I was just going to say, why weren't you an insurance broker or something? How did you end up where you were? You then go, well, I did an accountancy degree.
Yeah, people are surprised when I say that because it's not really in my personality.
Yeah.
I don't think.
What the
And,
hell
I
went
hated
right?
well, it's a good question. I hated every minute of it, and until my last year at university, when I started studying corporate social responsibility, when I started studying sort of the impact side of business, and that's what took me towards sort of youth focused services and charity in the charity industry. And I saw an opportunity with Thrive about 18 months ago, and mental health psychology is something I've been interested in a long time. While I was sat hating my degree, my wife was doing a psychology degree. And being completely honest, I actually would sneak into her lectures sometimes, and she'd be playing Sims, and I would be sat there taking notes. And so from that, I've always had an interest in psychology and mental health, and this opportunity to be a part of an organisation which is impact focused. That our goal is to reach as many people, and we have around 4 million people around the world who have access to our services. It felt like a dream come true, really, being able to work in that sphere and something which has affected my own life as well. And being able to do good and support people like the police and the wider public services family as well is I couldn't say no to that opportunity, really.
Oh, I mean, so phenomenal then. So you've got that. I've always said it's a bit like policing, where I've always wondered what it is to go to a job where you are supplying, well, just those idiots who are scamming. They've found themselves there for various reasons, and they've probably got lots of very sad stories and excuses for being there, but they've ended up there. And at the end of their life, they think, well, what have I achieved apart from absolutely ruining other people's lives? And it's actually, I've always described it as a privilege to do something policing, or Dale, what you're doing, because you think, God, you know what? I think even without trying too hard, you can have an effect on somebody. And
Absolutely.
People say, well, what's the best job you've had in the police? And I've nearly shot people, I've tackled armed robbers and stuff like that. But the best job is going to the little old lady. Yeah. It's the best job. You see the smile on her face, and her world is no longer ended. It is. There's Gary smiling. He knows that feeling, even though he's an inspector, and most of those are heartless people. But no. Sorry, this is where he goes. Gone. He's gone. But it's true. So I think it's really privileged to be in those sorts of occupations.
Absolutely. And being able to work. So one of my primary focuses at Thrive is supporting police. We work with a number of organisations, a couple of police forces, as well as I said, police treatment centres. And so being able to see the huge impact we're having there, challenging some of the stigmas, challenging some of the structural/cultural associations that people might have with mental health, or the unwillingness to talk about it for various reasons, which I'm sure we'll get into. It's been one of the privileges of my career, really, in being able to support the police and help uproot some of those issues, challenge them, and help people get to a healthier place with their mental health.
Well, we're going to go into the police treatment centres in a minute, because Gary's very near one at the moment, because he's actually in one at the moment. So, and I literally, 30-year career, and I had a knee injury that I did whilst holding a coffee and a coat, and some very kind officer opened the sliding door of the hire van, which is a brand new one, so I didn't know the step automatically comes out and down. So I tripped over said step, went into the van with a hot cup of coffee, which I tried to save, and then basically coated the inside of this brand new hire van, and several officers with scalding hot coffee, whilst completely stuffing my knee. But Flint House, which was the police treatment centre that we had down south, was brilliant. And I got to say, in 2 weeks, they sorted it. And I'd struggled along with it for 5 months, and somebody said, you should do this Flint House. I went, I've never thought of it, actually. And I got in literally just before COVID happened, and a month or 2 months before I was due to retire. But we're going to go on to that second. I just want to bring the app up, though, or what is on that at the moment. So can you sort of explain between yourselves, really? First of all, can you just remind us what CBT is, and
Absolutely.
sort of go roughly how the app, what it supplies?
Absolutely, yeah. So CBT is cognitive behavioural therapy. It's the most clinically validated and most widely used form of therapy in the UK. It's been around for 60 plus years. And we built the core of our app really around CBT because the skills that you learn from doing the CBT course that we've designed, which rather than a traditional setting of CBT, which would be, an hour-long session with a practitioner after a 3 or 4 month waiting list, I would caveat with as well. What we designed was bite-sized sessions that you can dip into as and when you please. It becomes a part of your self-care routine, and the idea being that not only do you learn how to challenge harmful assumptions and negative thoughts as they arise in the moment, but also that you learn for the future, so that you build your personal resilience against the onset of mental health and mental illness, but as well as get some treatment as and when you need it within that computerized CBT program. We also have a number of other tools within the app, such as intervention tools for things like panic and anxiety and stress. We have a number of mindfulness tools as well. But what I think really sets the app apart, and I think from our discussions, Gary, in terms of what the rationale behind bringing Thrive in was, is that we have a NHS approval, first of all, but also a clear care pathway for individuals through NHS approved assessments, which can open access to live therapy with a real therapist at the other end of the line, unlimited therapy to help people recover, get the support until they're recovered, as well as other signposting and support as well.
Brilliant. And the crucial thing you said is bite-sized things. People don't want to do a degree, and
Absolutely.
they don't all sometimes have the time and availability, but they want to have something that is simple, easy to navigate. And I noticed in some of the wording, it says you'll find a little padlock on something because you just need to navigate yourself through other bits first.
Absolutely,
and then that will open that area for them.
Of course, yeah. As we said, there's a clear pathway we've set, and we didn't just come to this game because we were interested in apps. Our co-founders are a clinical psychiatrist and a consultant clinical psychologist, and so they have an understanding of what works and how to bring people into these care pathways in a way which is as easy for them as possible to utilize. With the idea being that you might go into the app and the description of your mood might be a 4-letter word. I learned that from working with the police, that there's a lot of 4-letter words that are used when you ask around well-being. And as great as it is that you recognize that that's what you're feeling, that doesn't unlock the door to clinical support, because that can mean a lot of things. It can be that your knees hurting, it can be your shoulders hurting, it can be that that's how you're feeling emotionally. And so what we do is we give people this bite-sized content, these access to these quick but very, very effective and clinically validated assessment tools, where someone can go into the app and within a few minutes they can have an assessment of the symptoms they're experiencing. So they've gone from this I feel 4-letter word, whatever it might be, to at the end actually you potentially have the symptoms of severe anxiety. And so here's now what we do. One of our therapists will reach out to them within 10 minutes of that initial assessment, and we'll start that pathway to recovery with a descriptor of their symptoms, with someone there who's ready to help them make sense of it, and can start that path to support in a completely anonymous, confidential space, without perhaps some of the stigmas that we've touched on might exist within sort of more, especially male-dominated workplaces.
Exactly. And I think I got the feeling that things were changing, that people were much more open about talking about something, and being found in possession of this app would not be frowned upon in the slightest in the police anymore. That would have been gone. I even had officers who we totally respected in the collision investigation side of things. I was, an investigator for fatals for an awful long time, and I was very concerned that the next one could be the one. I felt absolutely fine. I had my own mechanism, luck rather than judgment, perhaps, but I wasn't being blasé about it. I thought the next one could be the little tricky one that got me, because I see people I wholly respected and thought would never be bitten by it, and then suddenly, where have they gone? They've gone off. They just need to, a bit of stress. They need to recover a bit of time for themselves a bit, because the workload is piling on as well. Gary mentioned that we were very sort of quite poor at dealing. There are processes in. Mainly, we've taken trim from the military and that side of things. We always learn from wars and things with our first aid and our trim and that side of things. But there was this part here, Gary, that you see that I see prevention and mindfulness techniques. Prevention is just so important, isn't it? With the police. How do you think do you think we're getting better at that, or are we just waiting until we're broken?
I do think I get a wee bit of an insight around the forces with people getting in touch with us through the page, and obviously speaking from my own force, we are getting better at it. We're absolutely getting better at it with the big trigger incidents. When we don't need to mention what they are, but those are the sort of incidents where you know that supervisors need to be switched on. The PSNI has brought in a peer support network. If it's a particularly traumatic incident, they will have peer support officers down before the end of duty. And I know a lot of my officers, whenever I suggested this, would have been a bit blasé about it and sort of said, look, just go along to it, let me know what you think. And they did, and it gives them an opportunity for everybody who was at that incident to have a little discussion around it. And maybe answer some questions that had been going on in somebody else's head. And it means that they're going home with a bit of a debrief, with a bit of a hot debrief, and they can maybe not dwell on it as much. But what we need to do, and one of the things I found is that as a supervisor, one of the things we need to do within the police is start to look out for each other, and we do that. Response is a fairly tightly knitted environment because you're at people all day, you're backing each other up in high intensity calls, and your supervisor and inspector and so on is deeply embedded within that, or should be, and it's about building a culture there that where you know your team, and you can then see the slight differences in some team members. Maybe they're not as attentive towards the work. Maybe they're more withdrawn. Maybe they're not engaging as much. And it's about you then as a supervisor caring enough to look into what may be the reason for that. Have they been to a certain number of suicides, for example, or have they been to a certain number of fatals? Is there something working on them? And it's then about having that conversation. And we're all very good at going, how are you? And we're all, if we're all honest with each other, expect the answer, I'm grand, thanks for asking. But it's maybe just asking that question again, going for a coffee. And then the other side of the things I find is that whenever you ask that question and somebody turns around and goes, well, actually, no, I'm not. You're then like a deer caught in the headlights because you're not trained.
That's true.
No, you're not up to you, and you either immediately try and fix it or you immediately try and panic a little bit because you don't know what the correct response is to help that person, and you maybe fob them off with OHW or Inspire or some counselling service. And fob's not the right word, but it's you thinking that you're doing the right thing and maybe not pointing them on towards onward help. And one of the big reasons that we like this app is because, as you know, Harry, and as Dale with working with police forces, that whenever we have this image in our heads that we have to just get on with things, and we are very reluctant to say, do you know what, I'm actually sitting here, I need help.
Yeah.
And that sometimes can have unintended consequences because you've been open and honest with your supervisor. They know that you're struggling with mental health, and then it's not like a broken arm. You can see a broken arm. You can't see what's inside somebody's head, and you then treat them differently, whether you like it or not. You react differently to them. You try and protect them a wee bit, and then maybe just that will reinforce some of the feelings. Now, I'm up at the police treatment centres at the minute for neck and shoulder injury, but I would have trouble sleeping. So when the nurse, you check in with the nurse whenever you're here, and the one thing with the police treatment centres is they genuinely care about the officers here, and they look at you and they really put you on the spot and go, well, why are you not sleeping? Are you all right? And that's an uncomfortable conversation because you have to maybe admit something to yourself that you're not willing to do. And I appreciate how difficult it is for somebody to say they need help, which is why the app's so good, because the only person that they need to admit that they need help with is to themselves. Nobody else needs to know about it. You're coming back in from a bad call, you can go into a toilet, you can go into the car, you can load up the app, you can do your 5 minutes of CBT, and if things are really bad, there's somebody there on the end of a phone to help you. And that's the one fantastic thing about it. And I know we haven't been live that long with it, but I'm speaking to Dale last week in relation to some how the response has been to the app. And it's been really positive. There's people getting in touch that maybe wouldn't have said to the supervisor they need help, but this is an option that they can go into. And they're responding to it. They're accepting the onward pathways to help. They're talking to the therapist, and they're showing signs of recovery. And maybe those officers would never have been reached by any other mechanism. So It's just another option for people to, and I'd say to anybody who sees us or knows anything about us at all, if you're struggling at all, or somebody who's struggling, get in touch. We'll give you access to the app, and that's all we need to know about it.
How is it? So how is it financed and stuff? Does the force have to sign up to it?
Well, there's some forces have taken it on board. Some forces have other means of helping people with mental health. But one of the reasons we took it on is because, although I'm an inspector in PSNI, this is completely separate to my job. This is to do with the charity, and we have a reach across the whole of the UK. We're not tied into any police force. What we're trying to do is just to give police officers another option that they may not feel comfortable with raising it through their own forces for whatever negative thought that puts in their head, whether it's warranted or not. If that's what they think they're going to open up to their superior officer, it's going to cause some sort of issues down the line.
Yeah.
They don't need to worry about that with this app.
And that's because it's always been difficult on armed response, and PSNI, I can imagine you carrying a firearm. The officers are thinking, well, if I just say I need some time out because, we made it certainly in our force that if you just wanted to say, no one would question you if you just say, do you mind if I don't want to carry at the moment. I'm going through a divorce. I'm going through this, whatever. But of course, mental health was a big stigma, to the extent that I think, well, what if they chuck me off the department? Because the force, whatever force, and you could sort of understand if they got into a shooting and then it went in the inquests where there's, 6 months of minute investigation by the best barristers for 3 seconds of decision making. And officer, did you not? Are you sure your decision making was up to scratch? It could cause a huge problem. It's a difficult balancing act, isn't it? But we've got better to make it look like, okay, look, mental health, this happens to everyone. It doesn't mean you're crazy. It doesn't mean you're going to come back and make bad decisions.
Mm-hmm. With the firearms rule, you will maybe sometimes get an overabundance of caution, especially if the stress word is mentioned or mental health is mentioned, because the easiest way to mitigate risk is to take the firearm off them. But then that immediately sets them apart from other officers, and if they, for example, they have to go back and ask about duty or whatever the case may be, and that's a big step for somebody to take, because that's their whole being. That's when they go to work. That's what they do. So it's all about, and a lot of it's all about understanding why the person's stressed. Why they're going off work. Is it because of stress at home? Is it a domestic family issue? Is it a money issue? Or is it something you're having thoughts you maybe shouldn't be having or you don't want to have? And it's about understanding that, and just to try and get people to accept the help. I'd rather somebody, came to us if they had no other method of doing it than the alternative.
And absolutely, and building on that as well, our therapists are well aware of support systems that are available to police, and it's all about, while we will treat and support and aid that recovery, it's all about encouraging them to make those steps if they need to at work as well. First of all, if you want reasonable adjustments to be made, then you need to let work know, kind of thing. And so our therapists are very great empowering people to make that choice when the help is happening, when they don't feel like. It can be often be the case that you take that first step and you're in the unknown, but actually we facilitate it so that they're not in the unknown, they're getting treatment, and the steps are then taken to facilitate that recovery even better. And so, we're all about supporting and empowering individuals to take that step, to get the help, and then helping them make sure that the help works for them, really. And so we can facilitate any concerns they have about speaking to people at work. We can help reassure them. We can talk them through whatever the steps that they are, and coaching them through that as well. And what we see is that on the back of the app being anonymous and confidential at the outset, our help-seeking behaviour levels, especially within police, are really, really high. Typically in the country, if the assumption is made based on data which has been collected by the Office for National Statistics and the NHS and other organisations, anywhere between 1 in 4 and 1 in 6 people currently living in the UK are experiencing a mental health issue in some form, whether it's a chronic mental health issue or it's a short-term issue in response to whatever they're experiencing. And the help-seeking rate of that overall proportion, which is a huge, you're talking over 10 million people, it sits somewhere probably around 15%, if not lower. Whereas within the Thrive app, and especially within police forces and blue light services, we see help-seeking behaviour sat at around 9 in every 10. So out of every 10 people, 9 will seek and accept help, which is phenomenal, because that's keeping people in work. It's helping people recover. We know how stretched police are in terms of, of covering the role that you do, and cuts over the past few years as well. And so being able to keep people in work, help them be present in work, and anytime they have to be off, shortened, to ensure that we're really supporting that individual and hopefully helping the police and keeping people in their jobs, not feeling the need. Because you've probably all seen the reports by the Federation and by Mind in terms of the role that mental health is playing in decision to leave policing, and we want to help that wherever we can, really, and keep people in a job which isn't just a job, right? This isn't just a job. This is a way of life. This is it's not just a career. It goes a bit deeper than that, doesn't it?
Totally that. And people say, well, some people say, well, why did you just leave? Why did you just leave? Because we want to fix it. That's why. Yeah. We want to fix what's wrong. Ian has asked a really good question here. Would Thrive share the number of unique users to the force that the app is being used for? Interested for management to see the severity of the mental well-being in their workforce. Obviously, it would be generic and just information.
Yes.
And that goes on the bounce on that side of things, where you're saying reducing absenteeism and presenteeism. When I was just tripping off the things that I was going through recently, people were going, "My God, you've been through hell," and yet one of the people who helped me, Nora from Northumbria, is a wonderful woman who I've known for a couple of years, and it takes someone like that to actually say, you're going a whole load of shite here, and you need to perhaps do this. Now, this is the funny thing. I then, for the first time, and I thought, I'll do that. I was going to check out a bit of therapy, went on there to say, right, because I just wanted to you're quite isolated when you're going through a divorce, looking after your mum. And there was other work things I'd been doing. It was incredible pressure where things are going off. You've got no control over, and these horrible things are being said about you, and people are believing them. And you're just thinking, I'm going to keep my dignity, my composure. You laugh it off, but it's going ting, 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 ting. And so I wrote, and I said, I filled in the form, and I never heard anything back from them. I thought it was a good job. I wasn't just about to do myself in, and it was terrible. So, but this is something where your app would certainly not have happened.
Absolutely.
It's having someone there, having someone instantly there, and then suddenly, like for me with Noor, it's like someone gave a shite, and it just needs someone else to say, okay, have you considered this? And this is what's happening, but this is normal, and so on. And your I called it convalescence homes. It's a terrible word, but the police treatment centres, isn't it? That you're at, Gary.
Yep.
I know they do phenomenal jobs as well, and I just know how much they did for me physically, but also suddenly I was 9 to 5. I was having regular meals. I was speaking to officers from different forces, of different ranks, of different departments, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter who everyone was.
Absolutely.
Just reset, wasn't it?
And that's what funny enough, the word my wife used was, you're going for 2 weeks, use it as a reset, get yourself sorted out again. And there's 2 aspects to the police treatment centres care. There's obviously the physical side, where you have physiotherapy, you have exercise programs, you have building up your strength, but there's also the well-being side of things. And police treatment centres, and I'm going to drop a few other charities here, Police Care UK have teamed up.
Police Care UK, brilliant.
Are brilliant work. They've combined and spent over, I think it's £1.5 million in Harrogate and Auchterarder, and really developed their well-being and mental health side of treatment. And there's officers coming from all over the country to get that reset, to speak to somebody who genuinely cares about you. And, you know, and the one thing that you'll know if you've spoken to anybody or any police officer that's listening in is it's all very good getting that 2 weeks reset, but you need a bit of self-discipline when you come out the other end, because it's very easy just to get back into that way of life, and life's too busy to do 5 minutes exercise. You know, you'd be scrolling your phone for 5 minutes. Well, why not use that for something that's actually going to help you? And I'm saying that to myself as much as everybody else.
Yeah, well, some people don't, because I was just saying to you, I was a right swat, and all the exercises they told me to do, I religiously did. And I thought after 4 months, my knee was just going to be one of those things it's just not going to fix. And after 2 weeks, I couldn't believe it. And it was all about, and they explained it's all about building the muscles around the ligaments and tendons, and therefore it gives them time to recover. Because at the moment, you know, your skinny legs, it's not, you know, but it's bringing strength into it. And the fact that there was 5 or 6 people that, it was 5 people that we all met up in Brighton again from that location. A detective inspector from Wales, a PC from Wales who moved to the Met. Crazy. Sorry, Matt. A PC from the Met. There was somebody who was in special branch from the Met as well, who was a DC, you know, who's moved out. A real mixed match of people. And we just went to Brighton, stayed in one of the flats there, and had a few beers and a few meals, and it was just brilliant. So you have these lifelong friends from these places, don't you?
Absolutely.
Well, I think you just described something which is really interesting to me, as my mind occasionally does kick into gear.
Not bad for an accountant, eh?
You're talking about, you know, you're given certain exercises to help build that muscle back up to strength around the ligaments and everything. And often with physical health, we see that, you know, you can't escape a limp, right? If you were limping around the office, Gary, if one of your colleagues was limping around the office, you'd say, what are you doing? Let's go get your legs sorted. Come on, you've been limping for weeks. But with mental health, often we try and, because it's not as visible, we often talk ourselves out of getting treatment, even though treatment takes exactly the same course as what you described. It's around building resilience. It's about building your mental muscles and about building up that ability to deal with the stress in the same way as you're building your muscles up. But we've drawn this hard line between mental health and physical health. And actually, it's the same approach to fixing them both. It's just one perhaps feels a bit more tangible. Yeah. And that's what's brilliant about the Thrive app, is that you've got those exercises like you discussed. The Thrive app will set you goals each day, which just take a couple of minutes, but there's those exercises to build the mental muscles that you need to be able to deal with the stress and the other things you're experiencing. And so it's brilliant that, you've got that analogy of the physical health. And I know police treatment centres do some excellent well-being and mental health work as well now. But within the Thrive app, we have that same style of facility. It's the same principles, and it's just applied perhaps in a more self-led way. But as you said, once you left the police treatment centre, that was down to discipline after that point. Yeah. You've got someone there around holding your hand a little bit, but then when you leave, it's about that consistency. And the more consistent you are with the Thrive app, the higher the recovery rate you'll experience, the quicker recovery you'll have in exactly the same way as with your knee. Yeah,
brilliantly answered. And the data, going back to what Ian's question was, actually, because I think I waffled on and took over it, but the actual data from that, you obviously have to collect sort of generic data so you can improve the app and see where things to go and improve. Do you think it would be quite useful to have that information generally?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we do capture within the Thrive app, I would add that everything within the Thrive app is anonymous. So you sign up, we don't ask for your name, your date of birth, anything like that. All you need is an email address to sign up. But what we are able to capture is recovery rates. We're able to capture severity. And so we're able to capture and essentially prove to ourselves that what we're doing actually works, right? That Thin Blue Line UK in bringing about this partnership, that actually it's useful to Thin Blue Line UK, that they can see that, well, this is something that has come in which is useful. We can see that recovery is happening. We can see help-seeking behaviour off the back. Yeah. And so the data which we are able to capture is capturing those recoveries, is capturing severity, and the prevalence of mental health issues, but all grouped, anonymized, so that I can't log on and find out that John Smith in the Met is experiencing X, Y, and Z. But actually, it's all about ensuring that what we're doing actually works. We can always capture that evidence and challenge ourselves to be better. And so in terms of the forces we work with, we're able to help them know that recoveries are happening, how many people are using the app. The data we provide is generic, but it allows people to see the recovery rates and that we actually work.
Dale, I know when I was at the police treatment centres and I heard about this app, some of the other information that's fed back, as you say, it is all anonymous, but some of the triggers of what's actually causing the issues in the first place, and whether that supervisor, whether that workload, whether it's fitness levels within a section,
100%.
It all sort of helps get, for the forces that have signed up to it, I think it helps give them an insight as to maybe why, maybe not the number, who they are, but why their mental health problems are starting to originate and be caused within the force, and gives them an idea of how to do their work and to try and address that.
Gentlemen, we're out of time, but I'm going to end on my favourite picture of all, and it is because people can still buy this, can't they?
No, they absolutely, yes.
And I recommend it. Well, it's Father's Day coming up. You need to get in there quick, even if it's a late one or whatever, because seriously, it is beautiful gin. It's lovely. It tastes absolutely gorgeous. This is actually my photograph over Lusty Days Beach, which is 20 meters up the road. Sorry, did I say that? Sorry.
Once or twice.
So anyway, it is absolutely brilliant. So lots of people very impressed and things like this. That hour flew by. I told you it would, Gary.
Yeah.
I'll tell everyone. I said, yes, so it's going to be an hour. He went, an hour? He said, I thought it was going to be 10 minutes. There's no time for 10 minutes. No, it was really good to
probably talk more to you, Harry, and I never thought I would say that. But I do want to thank you on behalf of the charity for giving us this opportunity to get the message out there, and to hopefully somebody will hear it and it will help them.
Brilliant. It's an absolute pleasure. If I could just ask you to just stay behind for a little bit as we close everything down. I'd just have a couple of minutes with you at the end. That'd be fantastic. Thank you ever so much. Thanks everyone for supporting this and staying on. Just spread the word on this one. This is a cracking one, isn't it? And we need to get this information out to as many people as possible. So retweet and all sorts and shout about it, guys. All right. Thank you all. It's been emotional. Let's do something next week, shall we? Cheers.